Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love money, mine. Love money, mine. This is freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna, and welcome to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I interview Ashley Park. Ashley is the money queen. She is from Budgets Made Easy, and she's going to share with you how you can look after your money a lot better and also look at strategies to earning more income. So it's not always been easy for Ashley. She's gone through different hurdles along her journey, but I'm super excited for what she has in store for you today. And in this current climate, she's got ways to help you save and make money. Hey, Ashley, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
So I know you're in the US and it's afternoon time here in the UK. So I'm presuming it's morning time. I'm not sure exactly where you're based. So whereabouts are you in the US?
I'm near Charlotte in North Carolina. So yeah, it's 9 a.m. here.
9 a.m. Yeah. And this is what I love about this podcast. I feel like I'm connecting with so many different people globally that if I was to do it in a studio here, I wouldn't have been able to meet all these amazing people. So it's super cool that we can connect like this, I think. So I just wanted to ask you, because I know that you help people with money overall, like helping them with debts, but also helping them maybe get a plan or you are like the money queen. But I know that you weren't always that. So I'm really curious to hear a little bit about your journey and how it all started and how you got to this point, really.
Sure. So I don't know how far back you want me to go, but, in childhood, I was raised by a single mother. We didn't always have a lot of money, as you can imagine. Our family was dysfunctional, I'd say, like extended family and everything like that. But just seeing my mom struggle as a single mom of 2 kids, trying to better herself, get an education, like advance her career, make more money, just really inspired me to not want to live that way. Right. And so I wanted to live in such a way that I didn't have to stress about bills and debt and all of those types of things. Of course, I didn't know like how I would get there necessarily. And she really taught me, and not even necessarily, it's amazing how you learn things, not necessarily your parents sitting down and saying, do this, this, and this, but just by observation, right? We learn things to do and things that we don't want to do, right? So that comes from all of our interactions with different people, not even just our parents. But I would see my mom budget each payday, like figuring out, because she was stressed about money, right? But I would see the process of, okay, my paycheck should be about this. These are the bills I got to pay. This is what's left over. So, I picked up on that. And, whenever I got my first job at 16, I did the same thing. I started planning each paycheck. And, I knew I wanted to go to college. I really love psychology and like, why do people do what they do? Like I've always been.
I love that. I think that's why I love true crime.
Yes. I love true crime too. Yes. True crime podcasts and stuff too. I just recently started getting into that, but like documentaries and, all of those things. So that's just something that I've always been curious about. And so, as I started college, I was not the first one in my family to go to college. My uncle was the first one. So I was like the second one. So it still it wasn't something that everyone in our family did. And so, I knew I wanted to go to college, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So fast forward to graduating college, and I was done with school. I wanted to move on. I wanted to start a career, start making money. And I had originally thought I wanted to be a counselor, but that requires even more schooling. And I was just like over it. I was like, I need to make some money and go to work. And so I decided to be a police officer. So, sometimes I'm like, how exactly did that
Did that
happen?
happen?
Yeah, because that wasn't anything like like I said, I've always been curious in true crime and like uh
Like
behaviorist
behavior
profilers and
psychology.
stuff, you
Yeah.
know. So I did study some criminal justice in school. And so I was like, well, that's something I can start doing now. And then I went on a ride along. I was like, okay, I can do this. This seems fun. And so that's what I did. I started that whole process of going through school and finding a job and all of those things. And I really loved it. I really enjoyed helping people,
Yeah.
seeing, the different walks of life and why people do what they do. Cause sometimes it's like why would you do
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
type of things. And then I became a detective, and I was a detective for 7 years, a police officer overall for 10. So I was in my career for 10 years. And I really got to help a lot of people, a lot of children and women. And that is really where my passion is teaching women. I also taught a women's self-defense class, and I was one of the first ones to kind of start that program in our department. And just that's really where my passion was. But then had our third child. Well, no, let me back up. So while I was a detective, my husband lost his job after we had our second child. I had just returned to work from maternity leave, and I get home and he was already home, which was really weird. I was like, he shouldn't already be home. Well, he, told me he lost his job. And after the initial freak out, it's like, okay, how much money do we have to survive and for how long? Like, how long can I feed my kids? Because my job didn't pay our bills. It paid for daycare, basically daycare and some spending money. Because daycare here, especially for 2 kids, is very expensive. And
Yeah. Same here.
it's like, whew. So yeah. So it's like, okay, how long can we
I think
survive?
also it's like there's that pressure, isn't there, on us women? I was the
Mhm.
breadwinner in my family, and we want it all because we want to be a good mom. We
Mhm.
want to have our career, but we also want to have a decent income. And I think, in a way, sometimes I feel like us women have it's been our own fault because we've fought for this equality, but then sometimes we kind of try and make men a bit redundant because we're like, hey, yeah, we're gonna be, you know what I mean? And it's like sometimes I think if we just sat back a little bit and just allowed this, not wanting to prove ourselves so much, like getting a bit more balance, I suppose, rather than
Yeah.
because we tend to be the leaders, I think, because we're the organisers, we give out to the family,
Yeah.
and,
True.
you know what I mean? But so I totally relate to that. I kind of you wanted to suddenly think, hold on, I need to take leadership here and get more of the income for the family and also juggle the children probably and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as a detective, I had to take calls. So, childcare was an issue. We had no family here. My husband would have to work overnight sometimes, and his job was very male dominated. And almost everybody worked with their wives, stayed at home with the kids. So it was
Yeah.
much more work, work, work. And it still is. It's gotten a little better, but it still is just not that great for family life. Like, they expect you to just be focused on that, and work 70 hours every single week and not complain about it. So before my husband had lost his job and we had our second child, we had taken out a 401k loan to remodel our house. And so what that is here in the US is your retirement. So we took money
Yeah.
out of his retirement, which was is a whole other discussion because I didn't realize that's what we were doing. And so it was just a whole learning process
Yeah.
of that. Well, when he lost his job at that time, they've changed things now, but at that time, you had to pay the money back within 60 days, or it counted as a withdrawal from your retirement account, which comes with a huge amount of interest and penalties from the government
Right.
because
Okay.
you're uh, supposed to save it for retirement, right? So, um, at that point, I wasn't worried about that. It was a good chunk of change, almost $20,000 at that point that we still owed. And it was like, you have 60 days. You don't have a job, but you have 60 days to pay back this money we gave you a year ago and is already spent. So it's like, okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. So, there wasn't anything I could do about it at that point. My husband found a job, we got back on track. Come the next year, though, when we do our taxes, turns out we went from getting like a $4,000 refund to a $6,000 bill because of that 401k loan. So it ended up costing us like 50% because it was like $10,000 between everything. Right. And so that started me on this journey of wanting to pay off debt, because it's like, I didn't know how in the world this happened. I didn't want to have to deal with the stress of my husband losing his job and not knowing how long we have money to last. And, if there's some things that I can change and do to make it better, just in case one of us loses our job in the future. I also I always kind of wanted to stay at home with my kids, but because of how I was raised by an independent single mom, like very independent, like I always wanted to be able to support myself and my children as well. So it was also kind of that balance, right? Like, it's like I make money, I have a good retirement system.
It's like you want to be in control, isn't it? Like not in a controlling way, but you just want to be in control and not rely on anyone else and be independent.
Exactly.
And I had similar. My dad was a financial advisor, so I was brought up with a financial advisor who was constantly drumming this in my head about financial independence, like being independent.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
So
yeah.
I totally relate to it, even though it's different. The difference is just like it still gets to that same point of I just want to be in control and not have to depend on anyone, because you feel vulnerable if you're going to depend on.
Yes. Yes. Very vulnerable. And yeah. And that's really what it boils down to: control, vulnerability. My husband and I are high school sweethearts. Like, we've never had like a huge fight or anything like that. At this point, we've been together like 23 years. So we've been together more of our lives than we've been apart, because we started dating so young. But still, you still kind of want that safety net, right? And so, but I did also kind of want to stay at home and be that stay-at-home mom, like baking and, doing stuff for the kids' schools, because with my job, I wasn't able to do a lot of the things at the kids' school, right? And so then you've got the mom guilt on top of that. And it's hard. It's hard because it's like you want to do all the things, and then you're not doing any of the things like 100% because you're spread so thin. So, so we paid off our debt, $45,000 in 17 months. Went intense on that. And then after that, we started saving and doing other things and decided that we would have another kid. We wanted to try for a boy. We had 2 girls, and I want to say it was like a year later, got pregnant with our third. He's a little boy. And I realized that without having debt, we could afford for me to stay home. And if I still had the debt, I wouldn't have been able to have that option. Now, it would be tight financially, right? It wasn't going to be like, oh, I'd still be able to go shop in a Target every day and types of things. Like, it would be tight. So I still needed to think about some ways that I could make some money. And I had started a blog like the month before I found out I was pregnant. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I can build this into like a real business, even part-time income. Make a long story short, I'm like 7 years in my business now. My son is 6 because I started it right before I got pregnant. I do make money from it, but it was not as quick and easy as people like to make you think on the internet. It's definitely not.
I think everything takes time. Everything takes time, doesn't it?
Exactly.
We see all these YouTube marketers, don't we? That they always make it sound so easy and that it can happen overnight.
That's not a thing.
And everything's around consistency and longer term, isn't it?
Exactly. exactly. Especially trying to go from like, I was miserable through that whole pregnancy. I am not a nice pregnant person. So it just does not suit me. And then, I dealt with severe postpartum depression after him. So it was a long journey. There was lots of stress around money in the fact that like it was a lot tighter since I wasn't making any money staying at home. So, that was a whole journey in and of itself. And I feel like it was some of the darkest years of my life trying to balance it all and still find the time to work on my business, but yet be at home with the kids and do all the things for the kids and clean the house and do the laundry and all the things. It's like there's just not enough time in the day. And I know for me, at least, I put a lot of pressure on myself to feel like, and I felt like I was like having to do everything for everybody and failing at all of it. And so it did take a while to kind of adjust to that because I went from feeling very successful in my career, being in my career for like 10 years, having that stability, that job security, to going to stay at home. Now I'm taking care of 3 kids at home by myself, trying to do all the things, not making any money. It was just incredibly stressful. Now, I'm not saying I regret that at all. I'm just sharing, like I'm glad that I took that leap, but yeah, it was rough there for a while.
Yeah, it's the reality. We like reality on here, because it is true. Yeah. Sometimes everything isn't always as you put things in theory, is it? Like what you plan and think.
Exactly.
Compared to the reality of it. But at the same time, it's time that you got, and time is more important than the money, I suppose. Because
Yeah.
I talk about 3 pillars on this podcast, and these 3 pillars have like helped me get equilibrium. Really, I don't say balance because I don't believe in balance. Because sometimes you might have, your children might need your attention, and work takes a back seat.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
other times I might be doing a launch online with my course and program, and my children take a backseat, not backseat, but do you know what I mean? There's more.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Can't have like a perfect week or perfect month. It's just up and down, but it's being aware of the balance,
Yes.
and making sure that it's not like that consistently all the time. But I talk about my 3 pillars. One is love, which is about self-care and self-love, and just really like looking after ourselves, really. And also the love that we give out. The other one is freedom in money, which you'll love, which is all, and it's not about, hey, making $1 million in 30 days. It's about not being stressed with money,
Hmm.
because that gives you a better lifestyle, less stress, and just more freedom to be able to do what you want to do. And then
Yes.
the last one is mind, which, to be honest, I always say this: love, money, mind kind of ran quite nicely as I was putting these 3 pillars together. But the word mind doesn't do it justice. For me, it's not about being positive all the time. It is about nurturing our mind and always making sure that life can get us down, or we can have a really crappy day. Or something can happen from our external environment that we don't expect. Like, someone close to us could pass away and it just throws us off our track a little bit. But it's just being aware that this is a moment in time. I've got, I've done a lot of work on myself over the years. I've got the toolbox to be able to get through it, or recognizing this is a bad day, tomorrow's going to be better. And just always filling our cup with good energy stuff and positive stuff, So
Hmm.
that would be a lot longer to put. So mind sums all that up for me. But those are kind of like the 3 things. And when I wasn't looking after myself, the seesaw balance was like that. When I was having financial stress, it was like that. And also when I wasn't kind of, I was coming with the wrong mindset. So I don't
Hmm.
know if you can relate. You're nodding for those
Yes.
people
Yes.
listening to us on iTunes. You can see on YouTube. But so I'm assuming by your nodding that you can relate to a lot of those.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So it definitely is important to think about the whole picture. right? And everything, how it all goes together. And I can definitely relate to, there's times that my focus is all on the children and what they're doing, and the business takes a back seat. And, that's really what I love about being a business owner now. Like now I think about it and I'm like, I don't know that I could work for anybody again. Like I just like that flexibility and that freedom to be able to do what I want when I want to do it. Now, sometimes that's not a good thing because I don't get stuff done that I should get done, but overall, I like the freedom of it.
When I think about when I was in my corporate career and I think it was 23 days holiday, I think, how did I do that now? And that's why I think I couldn't go back. That's the one point I remind myself. I think there's no, there's a friend of mine that's doing really well in the corporate world. She's earning well over six figures. Gets these huge bonuses. It's like nearly like half a salary and stuff like that. Got a company car. But she just seems completely stressed out all the time and hardly has any time off. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, like we're saying, we can choose the time. I, have managed to hit what I was earning in the corporate world and over that now. But it took me it wouldn't happen overnight. And so I think I'm really grateful for that journey of knowing it. And like you say, sometimes I've got deadlines and I'm like, oh, quiet, I'm procrastinating. I've just I've wasted the day today. What have I done? I'm not been productive.
Exactly.
But it's when you've got a boss, it's like you've got to get the stuff done. But I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you are describing your friends, and it just breaks my heart a little bit because it's like you can make the money and have the prestige and, kind of feed your ego a little bit in that way. But is that really how you want to live your life? Like it's okay to do that in the short term to reach your financial goals and reach some other goals, but like your long-term goals, is that sustainable? Not to be able to take time off and things like that. So I'm always thinking big picture.
Yeah, it comes back to what does happiness mean to you? And happiness to me isn't all about money. It's about and I'm sure you can relate to this, it's about having the time to be able to choose what you want to do, especially when you're a mum and you've got young children. Like mine are 15 and 13 now. And even though I took that time when I started my online business, it was in 2011. So my youngest was just turned 1. So 12, so I have had that time, I've been able to choose that time with them, but even still, I'm like, God, it's gone so quick,
Yeah, it does. It does.
It does go so quick. I just think, even though I've had, ups and downs along the way, I'm so glad that I did it. In fact, sometimes they don't appreciate that I'm always around. Like, the other day I had it where my son forgot his tie for school and had to come back. And then today I had it where my son's not been very well. And they rang me to say, could you just drop some medication in? He's got a really bad headache because they won't keep the medication. And I thought, I can just go. I had a call that I just finished, just went off. And I thought, God, imagine if I was in the corporate world, I was always driving long distance. Imagine if I was down in London, which is 2-hour drive. I'd be panicking now, even though I knew it would actually be okay. But sometimes they don't appreciate because I'm like the house that all the kids come to. Because all the other mums are workers, they all come to mind. I'm running like a childcare thing. Not that I really need to look after them, but I love it.
Yeah.
I love it really, but they don't. They've always had that, so they don't.
Right.
It's not. I was trying to explain to them recently. I know I'm always here, but actually need to get a bit more organised because not every parent can do that sort of thing. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. I think about that too, because in my job, I could have been in court. I could have been on the scene of a crime scene. I can't just leave work whenever you call. You got to figure it out. You just got to deal with it.
Exactly.
So yeah.
But
then
it's something to be really grateful for that we can, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's a massive. In fact, a few years ago, when they were a bit smaller, when they were sort of 8 and 10-ish, they used to be moaning to me because they wanted to go to the after school club, and I was picking them up from the school gate because all their other friends went to the after school club, and I was like, I've changed my life so I can pick you up.
Yeah.
Else hadn't. That's like, isn't this ironic that I was thinking that they'd love me to be at the? That only happened a few times, but it's because there was obviously some fun going on in the after school club that they wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For a
Yeah.
while, my kids asked to stay at the after school program. I'm like, what, that costs money? And no, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I'll pick you up from school every day. So yeah, they just want to do whatever their friends are doing. So
So tell us about, because obviously you're focused on helping pick through. I can see how now from your journey with, getting through the debt, and then also being able to like choose your time and balance stuff and make money around your family.
yeah.
How can you help other people who, so say someone's listening to this right now and they're back where you were when your husband lost his job, or maybe they're a single parent and all the income's on them and they're in debt. Any advice that you would, or any tips that you want to give them?
Yeah. So to kind of start, I encourage people to focus on that bigger picture. So like I said, I like to see the bigger picture. So like, where are you wanting to go? I call it the drive framework. So, where's your destination? Where do you want to actually end up at? And of course that can change along the way, but really it needs to be something that you are excited about. So is it being able to quit your job to stay at home with your kids? It doesn't have to be, but for me, that was kind of like what I was working toward. It could be retirement. It could be being able to travel. It could be taking your kids to Disney World. Like, what is that bigger thing that you can't do now that you really are excited about and want to do for your kids or your family, yourself, whatever the case may be? So it's really important to visualize it, like really feel it. What does it smell like? How do you feel? What's the temperature? Like, really visualize you in the situation that you want to be in, not just like, oh, I want to go to Disney World. Like, really think about what that looks like. Like, how are you going to feel if you could take your kids to Disney World and not come back without any debt? Like, everything's paid for. You get to just enjoy the whole experience, right? Like, how does that actually feel and smell and taste like, and all of those things? Because the number one indicator of success for any goal, but we're talking about financial goals here, kind of, is how excited you are about that goal. And that's really the number one indicator of whether or not you're going to do what you need to do to actually get there. If you're not excited about it, it's really easy to say, yeah, I want to do this thing, or I should do this thing. But if you really don't want to do it, you just keep putting it off. You procrastinate. It's like, it just feels like something on your to-do list that you're just not excited about. So the more excited you can be about that picture of where you're going, then everything else will follow. So that's D in the framework. R is roadmap, which is like your budget, your money plan. If you don't like the word budget, that's okay. You can call it something else: your treat yourself plan, your cash flow plan, your money plan, your payday plan, whatever you want to call it. And that is how you are going to figure out how to get there. And I always just start with a basic budget. So what your regular income is minus your regular expenses. That's the basic budget. Now, the money that is left over, which hopefully there is some, which for most of you there will be, but I know some people have more of an income issue and too many bills. But for the most of us, you're going to have some money left over, and that's where the magic happens. That's where you start to build out your budget to allocate to where you want to go so that you can reach that destination, right? But it's also important to think about other things that may come up along your way, because it's not going to be an overnight thing. You're not going to wake up and be a completely different person tomorrow, right? It's a journey. Like, think of it as a journey, as a trip, as a holiday. Like, how are you going to get there? It's going to take some time. You may have some stops along the way. But without going too much into the weeds, that's kind of the overview. Decide where you want to go and then start working on creating a basic money plan so you can really see what you have to work with. Because in our minds, we typically will over exaggerate numbers, or we don't have an accurate picture just based on things in our head. Like, you need to actually write down what your bills and stuff are, because more than likely you have more money left over than you think you do. You think you're broke. It's just a matter of spending and not being intentional with your spending. So you don't realize that your money is going to other things, like $20 here, $10 there. Like, it's just small things, and then it's just gone. And you're like, how am I broke already? type of thing. So, being intentional with your spending and your plan is going to set you in the right direction. And of course, I do have some free resources to help get started as well.
And so if people listen to this and saying, hey, this lady from, was it in North Carolina?
Yes.
I just questioned myself in my head there. This lady, Ashley from North Carolina, sounds just the person that I need. How can people reach out to you, and how can you help them? How do you help them?
Absolutely. So I have a podcast as well, the Money Mindset Podcast. And then everything else is Budgets Made Easy. So if you want to focus on like getting your financial stuff together, you can get a free budget starter kit at budgetsmadeeasy.com/start. But like all the social media, my website, everything is Budgets Made Easy. I am your new budget bestie. That's what we call ourselves in my community. We're budget besties. And, just start with one little thing, because if you try and go in and do all the things at once, it can be overwhelming and it's going to be harder to follow through. So just start with one thing. And it could be just listening to the podcast. And then once you get a hang of listening to that, then, maybe add something else. And so how I teach people to reach their financial goals is in very, very small steps, because as women, we overthink everything, or at least my women, my budget besties, we're all overthinking perfectionists. That's what we call ourselves. We're overthinking perfectionists. And so if we feel like we don't know what the next the right step is, we just kind of freeze. But if you can take some of the bigger things and really break it down into really small steps, it's a lot easier to gain your confidence and gain momentum as you go. And, we tend to not break down things enough, like on our to-do list. Like, I had one of my clients message me the other day and she's like, I've already got 4 things on my to-do list tomorrow and I'm just overwhelmed. And so she told me what they were. And I'm like, well, that's too many things, even though it's just 4 things. They were all big projects. I'm like, that's not realistic. You're not going to be able to get all of those things done tomorrow, more than likely. So pick one. And then I broke it down in steps for her. It was like getting her boyfriend's car washed. And I'm like, okay, well, that's like several steps, right? It's not just getting the car washed. It's cleaning out the car, vacuuming the car, taking it to a car wash, or taking it somewhere. That's time and or money, depending on what you're doing. Like, that's a bunch of little steps, even though it looks like one thing on the to-do list. So I think it's important to give ourselves some grace when we don't get everything done, because usually we're unrealistic in our planning and how we're thinking about things. We're not breaking it down enough, and it's just not realistic.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I say that to a lot of my students about like tasks that they're going to do when they're listing products on Amazon, just to like pick 3 things.
Yes.
So 3 things on your list, because we make these lists of like 15 things and it just rolls over to the next week.
Yes. Yeah.
Like build a website or something. It's like,
yeah, that's one thing, but it's like 50 steps.
Exactly. So yeah, I really like that. I like the breaking down the steps. It's really good. I love all of that Ashley suggested, and I think for anyone who's listened to this, who maybe, because I think a lot of people right now are in a bit of a money crisis with, after COVID, possibly like either losing their job or getting another job, or just feeling like they need a plan B in case they do lose a job, because they've seen other people lose their jobs. And just with the cost of living going up, energy crisis, everything's costing more, interest rates, all of that kind of stuff. People need like either side hustle or extra income, or just need to be able to budget better and and lay out where they're wasting money and how to be a bit more focused on their spending, I suppose. I think you shared some really good tips. I'm going to definitely go to have a look at some of those trackers or guides or things that you mentioned. So all of everything that Ashley's mentioned around her resources and her podcast, The Money Mindset, we'll put into the show notes. So if you're listening on any of the podcasting channels, you'll be able to click on straight onto those links. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, hello, you'll also be able to see them in the comments section. So it'll just be really easy to find all those resources that Ash has mentioned. And if you are wanting to kind of get on track, maybe with debts or just wanting to earn more, I'd really encourage you to reach out to Ashley and kind of maybe go and listen to some of her podcast episodes. Like you said, take one step at a time. It's been really great getting to know you. I've loved this conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah.
So everybody that comes on the podcast, and what we do on the birthday episodes, the podcast's been going 3 years now, is we edit the answers to these questions. We pick out like a handful of shows and then edit the answers back to back. Because it's quite interesting listening to different people's point of view, because there's no right or wrong answer. And of course, it's a freedom podcast. So what does freedom mean to you, Ashley?
Options. Freedom gives you options where you can make better choices. So, for me, that mainly means finances, but that it's not necessarily just finances. If you're stuck in a domestic violence situation and you don't have any options, you feel trapped, right? And so the more options that you have, you're going to be able to make better decisions and be able to take action easier. Same thing with your finances. It just gives you options to make different choices. Like if I still had a bunch of debt, I wouldn't have been able to have the option or the choice to stay at home with my kids. And so money gives you options in life. And I'm all about keeping all of my options open. I do nothing to limit my options in life. Like I need all the things. I don't want to give up any options in my life.
Yeah, love it. So yeah, remember everybody, options gives you choices. I love that. That's a really good one for freedom. So just really, really enjoyed connecting with you. Let's stay in touch. I presume you're on Insta. I'll follow you on Insta.
I am. Yes.
Budget's Made Easy.
Yep. Everything's much made easy. Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, Facebook, like all the things, except the podcast. The podcast is different.
So yeah, I'm going to come and follow you. And for everybody that has been listening, reach out to Ashley if you want to take her up on the opportunity of all the resources she mentioned, and just click the links in the comments. And my podcast editor is always telling me, remind everybody about the book. So I have a book called, I've always been into manifestation and visualization, because when I was stuck, I kept visualizing this what was freedom to me with the options that gave me more choices. And I put an ebook together around visualization and manifesting what you want in your life. So that is also in the show notes. And make sure that you subscribe if you're listening on iTunes. iTunes, wherever you are, just follow me and make sure you can see the other episodes. So thanks ever so much, Ashley. It's been great to connect with you.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, brilliant. Great stuff. See you then. Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if you want to get more freedom in your life, then come and join Your Freedom Project Facebook group, which the link is below in the comments section. And I am giving you a copy of my visualization manifesting book. So manifest more freedom in your life and live the life of your dreams.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast.